Senator Ted Cruz.
God bless the great state of Illinois. I am thrilled to be with you. What a terrific evening. Thank you for welcoming me to the great city of Chicago. Thank you for coming out this evening. You know, and I love you. You know, you can tell a lot about a word by studying its history, its origins. If you look at the word politics, its roots are two parts. Poly, meaning many, and ticks, meaning blood-sucking parasites. And that is a fairly accurate description of Washington, D.C. And yet, I got to say, all of us here tonight, we're here for something a lot bigger than politics. We're here because we recognize our country's in crisis. Because we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. Because our constitutional rights are under assault each and every day. And because America has receded from leadership in the world, and it's made the world a much more dangerous place. And yet I'm here tonight with a word of hope and encouragement. All across this country, people are waking up. And help is on the way. I believe this next election will be about three key issues: jobs, freedom, and security. Let's talk about each of them. Let's start with jobs. You know, let me talk for a minute to all the single moms out there who are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs, who've had your hours forcibly reduced to 28, 29 hours a week because Obamacare kicks in at 30 hours a week. Let me talk to all the steel workers and truck drivers and mechanics and plumbers, the men and women with calluses on your hands, the union members who've seen your wages stagnate, stay the same year after year. Cost of living keeps going up, but somehow your wages don't seem to keep pace. Let me talk to all the young people coming out of school. You got student loans up to your eyeballs. You're scared, am I going to get a job? What does the future hold for me? And the media tries to tell us this is as good as it gets. Well, let me tell you, that is an absolute lie. You know, it's easy to talk about making America great again. You can even print that on a baseball cap. But the critical question is, do you understand the principles and values that made America great in the first place? The heart of our economy is not Washington, D.C. The heart of our economy is small businesses all across this great nation. If you want to kill the economy, do what we've done the last 7 years, hammer small businesses all day long. On the other hand, if you want to see jobs explode, then take the boot of the federal government off the backs of the necks of small businesses. If I'm elected president, we will repeal every word of Obamacare. We'll pass common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. And we will pass a simple flat tax. where every American can fill out our taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. And we're going to rein in the EPA and the CFPB and the alphabet soup of federal agencies that have descended like locusts on small businesses, killing jobs all across this country. We're going to stop amnesty, secure the borders, end sanctuary cities, and end welfare benefits for people here illegally. And when we do all of that, we're going to see millions of high-paying jobs. We're going to see wages going up for everyone. We're going to see young people coming out of school with 2, 3, 4, 5 job opportunities. We will see morning in America again. The second critical issue in this election is freedom. You know, just a few weeks ago, the passing of Justice Scalia underscored just how critical this election is. It is not one but two branches of government hang in the balance, because we are one left-wing justice away from a radical 5-justice liberal majority, the likes of which this country's never seen. We are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court stripping away the religious liberty of every American. We are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court effectively erasing the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights. We are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court making us subject to the authority of the World Court and the United Nations and giving up U.S. sovereignty. Now, you know, a couple of debates ago, we were asked a question about the Supreme Court and religious liberty. And Donald Trump turned to me and he said, "Ted, you know, I've known a lot more politicians than you have." Now, in that, he's right. He's been supporting left-wing Democratic politicians for 40 years. I have no experience doing that. But Donald said, "Ted, when it comes to the Supreme Court, when it comes to religious liberty, you need to learn to compromise. You need to learn to negotiate. You need to work with the Democrats." Well, let me be very, very clear to the men and women of Illinois. I will not compromise away your religious liberty. And I will not compromise away your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Donald Trump has told us he intends to negotiate with Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer and agree on a compromise to replace Antonin Scalia. Well, I'll tell you this, every justice I put on the Supreme Court will be a principled constitutionalist who will vigorously protect the Bill of Rights for your kids and for mine. The third critical issue at stake in this election is security. You know, again, we have seen a president who abandons and alienates our friends and allies, and who shows weakness and appeasement to our enemies. 2 debates ago, Donald Trump explained, he said if he was president, he would be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. Well, let me be very, very clear for you. If I am president, I have no intention of being neutral. America will stand unapologetically with the nation of Israel. One of the most dismaying things that has happened over the last 7 years is we have seen our U.S. military weakened. We've seen our readiness degraded. We've seen morale among the troops plummeting. Now, I'll point out, we've all seen this before as a nation. We've seen another left-wing Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, similarly weaken and undermine the military. And in 1981, Ronald Reagan came into office. And what did he do? He passed tax reform and regulatory reform. He lifted the burden, the boot of the federal government off of small businesses. Jobs explode. We saw millions of high-paying jobs. We saw trillions in new revenue to the federal government. He rebuilt the military, and we bankrupted the Soviet Union and won the Cold War. I intend to do the exact same thing with radical Islamic terrorism. We are going to unchain the economy, see millions of high-paying jobs, see rising wages, the trillions that will generate. We'll rebuild our military so it remains the mightiest fighting force on the face of the planet. And no longer will our military be governed by political correctness. We will have a commander-in-chief who stands up and says to the world, we will defeat radical Islamic terrorism. We'll have a president willing to utter the words, radical Islamic terrorism. And you know, one of the saddest aspects of the last 7 years has been this president sending our fighting men and women into combat with rules of engagement so strict that their arms are tied behind their back, that they cannot fight, they cannot win, they cannot defend themselves. That is wrong. It is immoral. And mark my words, in January 2017, it will end. We have always been reluctant to use military force. America is slow to anger. But if and when military force is needed, we should use overwhelming force, kill the enemy, and then get the heck out. So let me talk a minute about politics. Where are we now? We're just a few days out from the Illinois primary. This race started off with 17 candidates. We had an incredible, diverse, young, talented, dynamic field of Republicans. What a contrast with the Democrats. And through the course of the year, through the course of a good and vigorous primary, the field is narrowed and it is narrowed and it is narrowed. As we stand here today, there are only two candidates who have any plausible path towards winning the Republican nomination. To win the Republican nomination takes 1,237 delegates. Right now, I have 361 delegates. Donald Trump has 460. He has 99 more than I do. Nobody else is remotely close. Now, at this point, I want to speak to the 65 to 70% of Republicans in Illinois and across this country who recognize that Donald Trump is not the best candidate to go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton. That if we nominate Donald Trump, we lose over and over again. Every poll shows that Hillary doesn't just beat him, but wipes the floor with him, wallops him. And if we lose the Supreme Court for a generation. We lose the Bill of Rights. In all likelihood, we lose the Senate and maybe even the House, and we lose races all up and down the ballot. If you're one of the 65 to 70% of Republicans who recognize Donald Trump is not the best candidate to go up against Hillary Clinton, then I would welcome you to come and join us, because our campaign is the only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump over and over and over again, and that can and will beat Donald Trump and win this nomination. And Illinois is a battleground. Listen, Illinois is used to being neglected by Republicans. I recognize that. Y'all have the burden of living under despotic, messed up, left-wing Democratic rule, which means the men and women here, you're hardy, you're principled, and you're fighters. But Illinois is a state that matters in this primary. Right now in the state of Illinois, Donald Trump and I are effectively tied. We are neck and neck here in the state of Illinois. And to get to 1237, listen, the media has already given the nomination to Donald Trump. They desperately want him to be the nominee because he may be the one person on the face of the planet Hillary Clinton can beat. They might share a cell. But the nomination is not going to be decided by the Washington establishment parachuting in some favored choice at a brokered convention. If you want to beat Donald Trump at the ballot box. So maybe you're someone here tonight that started out supporting another candidate. There were a lot of terrific candidates in this field. Maybe you started out supporting Jeb Bush. Maybe you started out supporting Chris Christie, or Mike Huckabee, or Rand Paul, or Ben Carson, or Carly Fiorina. Maybe even now you're thinking of supporting Marco Rubio or John Kasich. Well, let me be clear, all of those are good, honorable, decent men and women. They are people I respect and admire. But what the elections have made clear is that none of them is in a position to be able to beat Donald Trump and win the Republican nomination. So if you started off supporting one of those other candidates, let me invite you to join us. Come, stand together, stand united as one. And I have to tell you, if we do that, if we stand united, we will win this nomination. But you know, one of the interesting facts that has been underreported in the press is in primary after primary after primary, we are seeing record-shattering turnout. In state after state after state among the Republicans and among the Democrats, turnout has plummeted. If we nominate a strong, principled conservative who paints an optimistic, hopeful vision for the future, who lays out how we can bring back jobs and freedom and security, we are going to win this general election. We are going to beat Hillary Clinton, and we are going to turn this country around. So I thank you for your passion. I thank you for your leadership. I ask you to join us not only to come out and vote on Tuesday, but to pick up the phone and call your friends and your family and your neighbors and your loved ones and urge everyone, let's stand together. Let's stand united. And it took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan. And I am convinced the most long-lasting legacy of Barack Obama will be a new generation of leaders in the Republican Party who stand and fight for liberty, who stand and fight for the Constitution, and who stand and fight for the Judeo-Christian values that built this great nation. Thank you, and God bless you.